films, on paper, it doesn't really make much sense that I would gravitate towards horror because I'm a person with a lot of fear. But the draw to horror isn't to scare me. If anything, sometimes it can be comforting. I've always loved fantasy and horror since I was a little kid, and I think now actually more than ever, like we've lived a very real life the past few years in isolation. And horror can be dark, and it can be scary, and it can be gruesome, but it can also be camp and absurd and hilarious and also meaningful. And I think that's something that really speaks to me. I often need very real messages to come in a package of fantasy and entertainment for them to get into my head. When stuff is shouting at me, this is earnest, this is sincere, this is real, my head is very quick to be like, this is so insincere. But yeah, horror's taught me to laugh at fear. Horror's taught me a lot about the world, a lot about relationships, and most of all, it's entertained me. I think I chose to be a monster for quite a few reasons. First of all, it was a childhood dream to sit in that prosthetics chair for 3 hours every morning and have layer and layer of mask put on my face, and it gave me so much confidence and power to kind of feel like a character. But my record, Hideous Bastard, is very much about pushing forward the things that I think have made me feel ugly or unlovable or different in some way, and not to beat myself up or make myself feel like any worse than I have, but the complete opposite. I wanted to push those things to the forefront to free myself of them. So like very much embracing the monster within. Because it's taken me a long time to realize the way I've been navigating shame hasn't been working. And my way of dealing with it has just been control and hiding. And this was just not hiding. It's being the monster, embracing the monster, to hopefully realize I'm not so monstrous. I mean, the monster in our film is violent, does kill a lot of people, but also is the most vulnerable character and allows himself to be embraced by Jimmy. To me, he's the most relatable character out of the 3 that I play in the movie. The first, I would say, like year of my relationship with Yann was just being pen pals. There wasn't really much talk of even working together. It was me sending him half-finished demos and him sending me music he was listening to at the time, or film recommendations, or sharing stories about childhood. So then after like 9 months to a year of being quite intense pen pals, we started to talk about working together. And we already had the basis of a pretty great digital friendship. So the working process was just easy. Yann does in his films what I was trying to do in my music. In that my music, I knew I was writing about potentially heavy themes, but I didn't want it to just be a dark record. And I think Yann wrote a lot of this film knowing we had a lot of similarities. So he wrote it kind of about himself, knowing it would resonate and connect with me. I think is a master of both holding the light and the dark. Like what I was talking about, horror, he can be dark and scary, but he can also be very sexy and colourful and camp and joyous. He's able to be many things at once, and that was my initial draw. to Yann. At the same time I reached out to Yann Gonzalez, I reached out to Jimmy Somerville. Jimmy has, I don't remember the first time I ever heard Jimmy's voice. He has just always been around, whether that be at home or on the radio. And over time, as I became an adult, I realized Jimmy's significance, what he has meant for not only HIV and AIDS, but for queer people, for people that just felt a bit other. I had started writing this song, HIDEOUS, where I talked about my HIV status for the first time. And I wanted him on the song, not only because I wanted the moral support and the comfort of having him there, and for what he represents, but also he has one of my favourite voices in the world. And much like my relationship with Yann, I reached out to him just like an absolute fanboy. Hi, Mr. Somerville. My name is Oliver. I'm a big fan. How are you? And he became one of my pen pals. But I think a real reason I reached out to him was that I had assumed Jimmy was fearless, and I wanted some of that fearlessness. Fearless in the way that he's been so loud and outspoken for 4 decades. But having gotten to know him, Jimmy is not fearless. He's like full of fear, which makes everything he's done so much more meaningful and so much more cool. It wasn't easy for him, but he's still put himself out there and still done the things he's done. And he's been very gentle with me. I speak to him at least once or twice a week, and he's a good friend now.